Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to yet another uLaw webinar. Today's topic is going to be talking about the unsung heroes, as we call them, the 4 critical components of the uLawPractice solution that complements the practice management and the legal accounting components that form what uLaw is as a solution. Today's webinar is not accredited for CPD hours, but it is going to cover some of the core concepts of legal accounting practice management, especially talking about these core components that surround and extend the accounting and practice management capabilities and the mattering capabilities within uLaw. Okay? And we're also going to try and highlight certain features and functionalities that are not necessarily straightforward in how you view them or access them within the product. And we're also going to talk about these individual screens or functionalities within uLaw and how they relate to the significance that they bring to the table. Again, quick clarification that this webinar is not accredited for CPD, but our goal is to make this as fun and meaningful as possible and ensure it's your time well spent. Okay? And I highly encourage everyone to use the chat window to ask any questions that you may have. You can ask that during the session or at the end of the session, and we want to leave about 5 to 10 minutes, if probably more if there's time, to answer those questions, and I do have my support staff online to answer those for you. And for those who have used the computers to dial in, we often find the phone being a much better of quality of the audio. So if you are challenged with audio quality and if you're dialing into your computers, I would highly recommend using the phone. All right, so kind of moving along. So every uLaw webinar does have an agenda, and so does this particular one. And as I mentioned earlier on, the webinar today is going to be a deeper dive into the 4 critical components of the uLaw solution: the dashboard, the contacts, QuickView, and the calendar. And each of these functionalities or aspects of uLaw has its own significance that it brings to the table. And we're also going to talk about how they also work together to provide you that cohesive solution. And keep in mind that these are components, as I mentioned, surround and extend the whole matter management, legal accounting aspects, the core aspects of your business. Okay? We're also going to talk about, as I mentioned, how they complement the overall uLaw experience, but specifically focus on certain features that are not most often touched or used and why they should be to begin with. The idea for today's webinar is not to spend too much time on slides, but the slides are really to set the context, and I certainly would like to take then the next half an hour or so. Sure, I think there's a quick request for me to increase the volume, and I've just done that. And the slides really are a means of setting the context for what these individual components mean, and I want to spend a good majority of the time walking you through the product itself. So if you're a current user or a prospective user looking to explore uLawPractice, these are very critical to the use of uLaw, and we're going to cover them one at a time. And I hope this was better for audio quality. So the first item that we're going to talk about is the dashboard. Okay? Now the dashboard is pretty much the landing page within uLaw. So anyone who logs into uLaw pretty much makes the dashboard as a landing page. Keep in mind that our configuration within the settings tab allows you to configure uLaw the way you like it. It's very flexible, and it allows for configuration right from each individual item that you see within uLaw, including the dashboard, and we'll talk about a bit later. Now, an easy reminder system, and we talked about the tasks to be done. One of the most critical components of uLaw is that it's a practice management software. Give me 1 second as I let our clients in, please. Sorry about that. So moving along with the dashboard, the tasks to be done becoming one of the most critical components of how you manage your to-do list, the tasks that you have for the day. And the tasks could be matter-related. Tasks could be personal calendar items that you have that you set yourself out to do within your legal life. These are components that cover both aspects of your business. Matters to be docketed. This is a very important aspect of the dashboard. Many of our clients use the upcoming events as a very critical component of the dashboard for both individually keeping a task list of things to be done, but also reminding in a very collaborative way other members of the firm, reminding them of tasks that they have to do as well. So if it's a client intake, it could be a phone conversation or an interview that's been scheduled for an administrator to take care of. Okay? And the collaboration happens between, let's say, the legal practitioner and the administrator through these dashboard widgets. Another important aspect that I've highlighted in, within the slide is the invoice pending matter. It is probably the most sought after dashboard item. It essentially highlights all the invoices that have yet to be raised. So let's say you've put in the effort, you've put in the work towards that matter, but many times legal professionals within their busy schedule forget to raise an invoice, which is very critical for them to be paid. This particular dashboard item was created or developed so that it can remind you through that first landing page, which is the dashboard, of a list of matters for which you've already put in the effort and are eligible to raise invoices. Okay? Those are just some examples of how the dashboard has been built to kind of give you a quick reminder of things that you need to do to make money. And the other aspect of the dashboard is really for you to navigate within certain components of the uLaw solution to get to that particular task or matter or contact faster. So you worked on a contact, or let's say you worked on a matter over the long weekend, and you come back and you're overwhelmed and you really need to jump right into that matter, you can use these dashboard items to get to where you need to fast. Okay? So reminder system and navigating you through the uLaw product is the core functionality of the dashboard item. And as I kind of move along the slide, I want to remind you of using the chat window to kindly ask any questions that you may have. So it's a quick recap. We spoke about the upcoming to-dos, events, invoice pending matter, and how you can navigate through the different contacts and matters within uLaw. Okay? Next comes the contacts, and we want to spend some time within our contacts, and we like to call the contacts panel within uLaw kind of our mini CRM, if you will. There are different components to it, and there are significances in terms of how you save these contacts. And we're going to really take a deeper dive into all the features and functionalities that you have within our contacts panel. And the information that you store within our contacts functionality, if you will, has multi-purposes. Obviously, it allows you to create clients. It's probably the first and single most use of it. But then you're also able to add contacts of additional parties that are involved within a matter. Okay, so whether it's a small claims, where it's a plaintiff defendant, or if it's a landlord, where it's a landlord and tenant situation, or if it's family law with dependents involved. These are all contacts that are parties as they're related to that matter. The contacts allows you to capture all that information so that you don't have to repeat yourself in certain court form automation features that we'll jump into as well. Okay, so not only is it for clients, but it's also to store the contact information of all the additional parties that you want to bring into a matter for purposes of court form generation as well as other document generations. joint retainer is a great example of an additional party where you would store the contact information of the two individuals involved and associate them as joint retainers within the context of the matter. And we have simple ways that you can create your own groups. We have clients that classify contacts by area geographically. They classify them based on their, the context of the party. So if it's a defendant, we create a group called defendant, plaintiff, etc. So it's kind of easy for you to retrieve that information and keep a tab on it. And we'll also kind of walk you through some interesting contact level insights and reports as we move along. Okay. The QuickView is the fastest way you can search for any matter-related information within uLaw. One of the time most spent in a law firm is really searching for information, searching for documents, searching for matter-related information. And our goal through creating QuickView was to give you access to all of that information in a single panel, making it easy for you to retrieve that information. So it's almost got a contextual Google search type of a widget, where you just type it along, whatever information you know that you're searching for, and we're able to retrieve that. It allows you to organize it, sort it in ascending, descending, and we also give you the opportunity to classify your matters or categorize, if you will, into 3 different components: active, closed, and archived. The goal being that you could focus your attention on the active files, and the closed and archived, which are logical closures to a file, are always available to you for conflict screening or other purposes. Okay? And you're able to search for a matter and drill down right into that matter right from the screen. The QuickView also gives you access into interesting reports, especially around work in progress. Okay? And there's a quick question. I'm going to get to that question real fast. Sure, I can definitely show you as to how you can access the QuickView within uLaw shortly. Okay. And the last component that we're going to be talking about and demonstrating in today's webinar is our calendar. Now, with our iOS and Android app available on the respective iOS store and App Store, there's a great synergy between the calendar functionality within our web version of uLaw and the app version. Okay, the fundamental importance of the calendar is not only to manage your calendar time, but also to ensure that you have a quick view of whether it's a daily, weekly, monthly view of your time, with pertaining to both your law office as well as your personal time. So customers today use uLaw, and the fact that you can synchronize that with your Outlook, your Google Calendar, and now with the advent of the iOS and the app for Android, you are now able to synchronize it with your iPhone or your Android phones as well, giving you access to the calendar information that you need, so you're not missing out on those court dates, you're not missing out on those consult meetings that you have with your customers, and it's a great system to remind you the fact that it's connected to your phone. It always brings up a reminder right within your phone about all the upcoming events and calendar events that you have planned for. Okay? And within the calendar, because it's time-based, we also have reports that it gives you, again, specifically the client and service summary is probably the most used report within one of the most used reports within uLaw, and it's right within our calendar. This gives legal firms and law firms the access to really understand unbilled hours, work in progress, kind of give you a timesheet view of everyone that's working together in that firm, and you can generate reports at individual levels about how each and everyone in the firm is contributing and their docketed time, etc. Okay, so it's because it's all time-based and time-bound. So the 4 major topics, again, we've spoken about this, but uLaw, we are a Canadian, very proud Canadian legal accounting and practice management software. And for those who are tuning in today who are not existing customers, we welcome you to try us out for a free 30-day trial. But just taking a quick recap of the 4 critical components that we've looked at that include the dashboard, the contacts, the QuickView, and the calendar. Okay, and we've kind of discussed how these critical components form or complement the overall uLaw experience. Dashboard being a bit of a reminder system, as well as takes you or navigates you through the uLaw software quickly and easily. The contacts panel allows you to create new clients so that you can start mattering that client and docketing. This is almost the first step, if you will, but that client intake process we talk about. It gives you the ability to organize your contacts, but also bring in contact information, first name, last name, address information of parties that are involved within a matter, and how you can then associate them as respective parties, whether they're joint retainers, plaintiffs, defendants, dependents, landlords or tenants, etc. And not only do we then automate the forms that we generate, but also the court forms that you generate on behalf of your customer. Okay. Then we moved along to look at QuickView, and I'm going to jump into uLaw real quick to show you how you can access it. But this is the fastest way that you can search for any matter-related information. It gives you the ability to sort things out. It's a search based on free text. You can drill down right into a matter after you've searched for it. And you can also categorically search for it based on whether it's an active, closed, or an archived matter. And the last component that we're going to touch base today is our calendar system. Has a color code for the dockets that get calendarized. It has a daily, weekly, monthly view. You can always have the option of hiding your legal time dockets if you really want to look at your personal calendar right within uLaw. It allows you to synchronize with external calendars such as Outlook as well as Google. And with our app being available on both iOS and Android, you can now synchronize uLaw with the uLaw app that would then allow you to set reminders right within your phone. Okay, then we'll also look at the timesheet and client and service summary level reports right within the calendar. So enough said, let me move along now and open up my uLaw. Okay. Reclaim the presenter role. Happens more often than you think. There you go. So I'm now logged into our Playground account. And this is one of the accounts that we provide all customers of uLaw so that you could use it almost as a way to play with uLaw and kind of put in your fake names and fake information so that you get acquainted with it before you apply those principles to real-life accounts. Okay. So I'm logged into one fictitious lawyer, Roger Moore, within my Playground account. And once I log in, I'm presented with the dashboard. So we spoke about the 4 different components that are going to be discussed today. Here they are within the uLaw menu option. You have your dashboard. You have your contacts, okay, which has a list of all the contacts. You can see how you can add a new contact and add them to any of the categories or groups that you have. The ability now to create new groups, delete groups, or even merge groups, rename them, etc. And here's the Quick View option. When you click on it, it brings out the Quick View screen that gives you a list of every possible matter, and it categorizes by them active, closed, archived. If I were to quickly look at just my archived files, here's a quick list. But in uLaw, we always start off with active being the default search list, so that's letting you focus on what's important, which are all the active files. And leaving matters and accounts for today, we're just going to go right into calendar, which then gives you the ability to have a monthly, weekly, agenda week, agenda day view, right? So if I were to look at the week of June 29th, I can go back in time and I can look at the week, etc. And the calendar gives you the flexibility then to synchronize with third-party calendars. So you can sync your dockets, and you can synchronize them on a regular basis or specifically for a date range or for a month. And this then gives you the flexibility to synchronize it or download it as either an Outlook file that you can then add to your Outlook, or it can be added to your Google Calendar as we send you a quick link to your email. Okay, so let's start one at a time. The dashboard, as we discussed, has these critical components. Now, this is a configurable page or landing page, if you will, and the configuration of all these items happen within our settings. So as you could see, for each of those individual menu options, for dashboard, contacts, calendar, you do have their corresponding personalization or settings tab. So let's quickly look at our dashboard configuration. This is where you would focus on how do you want to personalize that dashboard view. Okay? So simple things like, okay, I like this to be maroon because it matches my overall company's website and my branding as a firm. You have the option of retrieving information as old as 6 months within uLaw and then showing it to you right under your dashboard. Our recommended time period would be a week because you're always then catching up on what's new with the hope that you're actually finishing it off that week. But you can configure this to reflect your comfort. We do consider the analytics as part of an extension of the dashboard, so it gives you the opportunity to determine how many deep dive analytical widgets or squares you require within uLaw. You can configure that. And you can personalize this by rearranging the order in which you want these different widgets. So if let's say the invoice pending matter is probably the most stored out dashboard widget item you have, you can just rearrange it. Okay. And you can have up to 6 different widget items. You hit save. And once it's saved, jump in the dashboard, you're going to notice the view changing from black to maroon. And we've just rearranged the order of the different widgets, right? So you've got invoice pending matters first, got contacts, upcoming events, to-dos, recently modified matters. So let's kind of take a bit of a deeper dive into these individual widgets and what they mean. You can see right now my upcoming to-dos, which is directly related to my matter, is totally empty. But I do have a lot of upcoming events, and I do have a few that are color-coded in red because this was supposed to happen on May 31st, and we don't know whether it actually happened or not because you've not told us. Let's say it is a billable item. Let's click on it. Let's say that did happen on May 31st and you just did not tell uLaw about it. And you're going to go ahead and dock it right here. So it gives you the ability to, what we call as a quick docket, right within uLaw for Mr. Adam Sandler, which is a speeding, which is actually a court date visit. And you spent 1 hour on it on the 31st of May. And as soon as you save it, that's 2 things. It obviously takes it off your checklist. So you don't see the second court date anymore. And the next thing is that it actually updates your matter for Mr. Adam Sandler with that 1 hour docket. Okay? If I were to go in and search for that particular matter, speeding on Yonge Street, you're going to notice that second court date was actually docketed for 1 hour. Even better, is it also brings in the speeding on Young Street as an invoice pending matter by date, obviously, but it gives you and reminds you that now that you've put in that 1 hour docket, you're eligible to raise an invoice for this particular client. So that's how they all kind of work in tandem and work together to remind you of how you can make your money fast. Okay? Let's say you go ahead and raise that invoice for that one hour of court date, which is very important. You're going to notice that once you've generated that invoice, obviously within the matter, the status changes to no pending invoice. But you're going to notice that being taken away as one of the items, so you don't have to worry about it. So in an ideal situation, you would like this invoice pending matters to be empty, which means that you've taken care of and you've got up to date with all the invoices that you need to raise. Okay? So that's how the upcoming events and the pending matters kind of work together. Now let's say you set up particular systems within matters. So let's say there's a court date. And instead of it being an event, you're just going to remind yourself or someone else in your team you can actually add these reminders or to-dos that are matter specific, and those to-dos or task items, as we call them, that are very specifically to this matter, which is Adams Bandler speeding Young Street, will then show up here as well, specifically under your upcoming to-dos, which are purely matter dependent. Whereas the upcoming events are both for matter as well as personal events that you may have, right? And I'm going to show you how these components work together now. So I'm just going to sidetrack and jump into my calendar. Now let me look at, so there it is, the court date just showed up. I'm going to add a personal item. So for Friday, I'm going to say meeting with friend. And I'm going to say it's at 5 p.m. or let's say 8 p.m. And I'm not going to associate it to a matter because this is a personal event. And then I can use that to be saved right within uLaw. Okay, so there it is. And once I have that as an event, I also have that as a reminder right within my upcoming events. Now, if it is related to a matter, you will notice the matter right here. You would see that the client's name is Bond Sheldon, and the matter is Bond versus Boris. Or if it's not related to a matter, you do not see that extra information, but only the time, start date, and what time it is. Okay. Again, keeping tab of what for those who just joined us, the color coding is the closer it is to the duration of the actual due date, the further it is, to the due date, the bolder the red color is. So you've got black, orange, and red. Okay, so let's say you've actually done this purchase, and go ahead and docket it. Takes it off your checklist, adds it as an invoice pending matter, and all you need to do is go in and generate that invoice. Okay? So we've kind of looked at how these individual docket items or dashboard items allow you to catch up with what you need to do to make your money. And we spoke about the recently modified contacts and matters, and as the name sounds, it's just a simple and easy way to get you right into that contact that you're working on. So you want to click on Bell Canada Inc. It takes you right into that contact so you can start working on that contact. A good example is many times when you do your client intake, you may actually forget to put in the source of contact, whether it's a personal referral or something like that. The recently modified contacts gives you the opportunity to jump into that contact right away and make that quick change. Same thing with modified matters. Let's say John Smith speeding on Young Street, click on it, and takes you right into that matter, okay, so that you can start working on it. So the dashboard item, and just as a reminder, very, very friendly and very effective in terms of how you can navigate within uLaw, but most importantly, reminds you of the tasks that you have to accomplish to make your money. It's a two-step process, docketing the time, reminding you of the things that you can docket, and reminding you of the things that you can raise an invoice for. Okay? Kind of moving along, let's jump into contacts. Now, when we talked about contacts, we mentioned that this is where you're kind of your first step before you create a matter for a client, because this is where you're storing your client information. But we're also talking about this is where you're storing contact information for other additional parties. So let's take a quick example. Let's create a client and then walk you through how you would associate those different contacts as parties and all the functionalities that you can drive right within this contact screen. Okay? So as you've kind of noticed, usual suspects, you've got the add new contact, you've got the ability to create a new group. So you can say webinar registrants. And you're going to notice that that group just got added right within my groups. Now I could search for any, let's say I search for John. I just type in that John, and that's all I did. Let's choose John Travolta. I can click on group, and I can actually add Mr. John Travolta to my webinar registrants group. Okay? And by doing that, it's as simple as that. And by doing that, you're going to notice it's an easy way for you to classify your contacts and also search for them quickly. Okay? So you have all contacts, you have specifically your clients, and then you have these different groups that you can create so that you can then classify your contacts. As I've mentioned, we have clients who use the grouping here. So if there's a representative that you come across at court quite often, you store their information one time, especially their address, and you can repurpose them as parties within a matter, as well as use that information to populate or automate the population of that information within court forms. Okay? So, and the search feature is just a quick and easy text search. So for if you know the first few alphabets of the name, whether it's first name or last name, you can type it in, and it's going to show up right within here, and you decide to choose which contact you want to work on. Right within the contact, you have the opportunity to edit an existing contact. You can say Mr. Stefan Edberg. We could say that this is a client that you got in as a client referral. You can add additional information. We're going to get into it real quick, but there's a three-pronged approach to this contact. This is all the groups. These are the specific contacts within that group. And then here is that individual contact that you can work on. Okay? So let's go ahead and create a new client. And I'll say add new contact. I'll add it to the clients group. I'll say Rob Davidson. Click on the More button. You can provide marital status, birth name, birth date. And the significance of the birth date is that in certain court forms that asks for the individual's age, uLaw would be able to pre-populate that for you. Now, if this is not an individual that you work with, let's say you're in an employment law or anything like that, where you work with corporations or companies, you can click on that it is a corporation, and you can basically say Rogers Canada Inc. And then this is your client now. The client is truly the information that's being stored for the person you're going to do the docket or the matter and raise the invoice. Okay? But if it's for an individual, then pretty much forget that, uncheck it. And you can add job titles, profession, etc. The source of contact gives you the opportunity, as you do the client intake right here, to ask how Robert got to know you, in this case Roger Moore, as a legal professional. And it could be a personal referral. You can click on the notes. Okay. The Law Society would obviously like you to capture an address. So let's go ahead and put in an address. You can always add multiple addresses by clicking the Add button. But in uLaw, it's very important to keep in mind that you do need to mark one of them as a mailing address. So let's mark this as a work address. We'll make the 91 Queen Street as the mailing address, because the mailing address then gets used across communication, correspondences, as well as court form filling. Now, because we have our uLaw app, it's a great idea to populate the phone number, because you can then use the uLaw app and use the features within that to make this your legal phone book. At emails, websites, etc., I'm just going to go ahead and click the Save button. That allows you to now create that client contact, Mr. Robert Davidson. It's going to save. Now, within the Settings tab, you have the opportunity to sort this by first name, last name. You can color code it based on whether it's a client or a different type of a contact. You have all those options right under Settings, under Contacts. Okay, you can expand the name fields. You can have a default title. We have certain clients that only deal with a certain title. Like if it's a divorce case, and it's, you can default that with the marital status. Some of our clients only deal with a certain area code. You can decide what that area code is, your default envelope or envelope sizes, and a color to highlight your clients. And the default sort by either first name or last name. Okay? That's why it's by last name now. You're going to notice the notes referred by Cindy. You can minimize this, keep it straightforward. A very, very important feature within the contact screen now is the ability for you to do a conflict screening. So now that you've had a client intake, one of the first steps that you need to do is ensure that you have the full understanding of whether there is a conflict in representing Robert Davidson. Okay? So let's take the example of a very simple conflict screening here, where you click on this. A very simple conflict screening is without checking those boxes. Allows uLaw to now search for the first name and last name and provides a report that outlines potential conflicts. Okay? So the potential conflicts, there are some first name, there's a few Roberts that you've dealt with. Okay, so you as the legal professional obviously have to make the judgment whether it's a conflict or not. We want to give you all the information that you need to make that informed decision. And here's some last name conflicts. There are a few David Chambers, Green, Johnsons, etc., David Johnsons. But this information somehow doesn't seem to be a complete picture. So let's go ahead and kind of look at our advanced conflict screening options. You want to go one step further and ask for uLaw to check if you have ever created a matter for someone like Robert Davidson. First, it was just checking for a first name, last name. You've come across that before. Now you're going one step further and checking if there are any matters that have been created. And incidentally, there have been a few matters. Robert was a Steffi. Okay? But it's very high level. You don't know what it means. You have the opportunity now to copy that. And this is very handy to use our QuickView. Type it in. You can even copy paste it. As long as it's an active file, it would show up right here. There it is. You have Robert was a Steffi. You click on that particular matter. Do a deeper dive of what this matter means. All right, so it's a family law chrono. It's really not the same Robert. because it's a Robert Matheson. So you want to go back. And here's a convoluted way in which we allow you to do a conflict screen. So let's go back to this particular matter. Actually, let's go to an Adam Sandler matter. So in my dismissal, let me just go ahead and say initial consult, and I'll say met with Mr. Roberts Davidson. Okay, so let's say you came across this individual Davidson who you met for a totally different matter, for Adam Sandler's dismissal, but it's still, there's a mention of the name and the word within the docket. uLaw loves you to capture that as well. By using the last option that we have for a conflict screening, which goes one step granular, is not only do you want me to check for matters, but if you ever come across someone like Mr. Robert Davidson in any of my matters. And uLaw can keep in mind that this particular playground database has close to about 3 million records, which has grown over these years. Takes maybe 15 to 20 seconds at the max to run a report on a 3 million database. I wouldn't imagine your database being that big. As that generates that further, I can now add Robert Davidson into any other groups that I like. Okay? So maybe this is a web lead, so I'll kind of add him to my web leads. So here is the final conflict screening report that includes the events in which you've met with a name like that. Interesting to note, a partial name appears in existing events that includes the dismissal for Mr. Adam Sandler. Okay? And that's the point I want to make. All under the action. Right within the contact, this is how you can go ahead and create a matter. So let's say you click on the matter button. This takes you to the next phase of this individual's life, which is GUI, make that a criminal. Let's go ahead and create that matter now for Robert Davidson. Okay? But going back to contacts, let's look at what else we have within our contacts. If you just created a client, we did a conflict screening, and we kind of walked through the different types of conflict screening that you can accomplish. It brings, the ability for you to search by group or by name. The ability for you to now create new groups, delete them, and then the three-pronged approach: groups, contacts within that group, and then the individual contact. Okay? Now comes the document generation. Now for an individual contact, let's go back to our Ray Davidson case. For Mr. Robert Davidson now, he could start generating envelopes. So if you look at the C0, C8 type, we give you a picture of the different types of envelopes that you can generate. Let me go ahead with the DL. You can include your firm's name, your name, your firm's name, a logo if you have, a phone number, email, website, all the good stuff. And if you hit the download button, we generate an envelope that you can then leave the exact envelope that you purchased from Canada Post and then print this. Okay? Some little pragmatic tools that we have. You can also generate labels for Robert Davidson. These are Avery labels that are standardized. Okay, and you can print 20 or 30 of them. And right under document generation, you have this very interesting report called Source of Contact. So let's say at the end of the month, you really want to understand where are your leads coming from. From all the intakes that you've done, you really want to assess where to put your marketing dollars to work. Now this is one report that tells you, obviously there's just two. Let's look at it for the quarter. Go ahead and do the same source of contact, and I'll do it for this particular quarter. Actually, you know what? I will do it for a date range. I'll include June as well. All I want to showcase to you is the diagrammatic representation and the classification that we provide. There you go. So from 1st of April till the 30th of June, previous quarter, this is your spread of your clients or your referrals. You have 12 personal referrals, about 10 advertisements, and we also go to the extent of showcasing to you all those contacts that you did not tell us. For example, John Copper or Gabriella Sabatini. Let's take Gabriella as an example. We don't know her source of contact. You look at this report, you go back into uLaw and just type in Sabatini. There's the information. Click on Edit, Client Referral, done. It's as simple as that. Okay? You have the option now to import contacts, export them as well, and you can export them in various different formats. You can import them from CSV files, and you can prepare it in any template that you like, and you can export them as a vCard, an Outlook CSV, or a Google CSV. Okay? And that's all I wanted to kind of cover within our contacts. Now let's go back to our Robert Davidson case. Oh, sorry about that. Let me quickly close down that. Okay. What I'd like to accomplish now is kind of go through the quick view. That kind of give you a rundown of what you can accomplish within the quick view. We've already looked at how you can drill down into a particular matter right from your quick view. Walk you through the different categories that we have. I'm just going to quickly refresh my uLaw. And in the meantime, I kindly request that you kind of put together a set of questions. Okay, I think that's a good question. How do we enter payroll expenses and accounts? I will certainly come to that. If I were to, jump off my tangent right now, let me just finish off quick view and calendar, and I will certainly jump into answering that question. Okay, so going back to quick view, you have it sorted by file number. You can also sort it by created date. You can sort it by the last modified date, which is very critical, because for each and every client, we also let you know what was the last modified date for that particular matter. Okay. And as I mentioned, you can also search for information based on the title or anything within that matter. If all you know is that there's a Jones involved, all you need to do is type in Jones, and it's going to bring up every possible information that it can capture about the Jones involved in each of those matters. And you can just click on it and jump right into it. Outside the search capability of the quick view, one other item that we have is the document generation, where you can now generate a work in progress report. So I would say for this date range, let me just do it for this week. Just want to do a quick download of the worker in progress. So what all the contacts or the matters for which, there you go. So there's these two different matters, PD on Young and dismissal, for which there are unbilled hours. Okay? Kind of set yourself to do certain things, but you've not yet done that. You can also print this. So a part of the auditor's Law Society audit might also be providing a quick report of all of your active files that you're working on, either by date or by month. We give you the option to now print this entire QuickView report, including all matters if that's what you need, or by date range, and providing it to you in a format that's meaningful and for you to print and submit it. Okay? Here's a quick list of all of your active files. And you can export it as well. Awesome. So going back to my contacts, and the point I wanted to make was, let's go back to our Davidson contact. And let's jump into this matter. Maybe what I'll do is kind of make this an eviction, just to prove a point. I'll say it's a landlord and tenant. For the purposes of showcasing to you how other contacts should be added right within the contacts panel to make this more meaningful or seamless additional parties feature. So let's go ahead and say that Robert Davidson is the landlord. I'm going to add to, and you can add it to the tenants group. Let's add the tenant's information. Let's put Lindsay's address. Okay. Now that you've added Lindsay's contact information within uLaw, you've given the first name, last name, and you've also provided the address, which is traditionally the unit that's being rented out. Now what you could do is go into your matters for Mr. Robert Davidson, go into additional parties, and now associate the Lindsay contact that you saved. So let's go search for it. So there is Lindsay's information. And now let's add Lindsay as the tenant. Okay. Assuming that Mr. Roger Moore is representing Robert Davidson, here's the tenant Lindsay Davenport. And let's also get the representative of Lindsay, which is Stefan Edberg. We've now associated a contact as a party in the context of the landlord and tenant eviction matter. And if I were to go in to document generation forms and do a landlord and tenant board, application to evict a tenant, what we empower you with is a form, a court form that's pre-populated with all of the information. So that then, it's a little bit of a time saver. And if you do more of these types of forms, and we do it for many different silos of practice, same concept, it all saves time over a period of time. So here's the landlord's information, who's your client. Here's the tenant's information, her address. And all you have to do is check these boxes off. Okay? There's some forms, and here's your information in. So there are some forms that we populate 90 to 100%. There are some forms that we do about 60 to 80%. So that's another very critical aspect of using contacts. Last but not the least, calendar. We kind of looked at the different color coding of depending on how far away you are from the due date. We looked at how you could have dockets that pertain to a matter, as well as events that are not related to a matter. And if you walk into your calendar You can always hide your time dockets, only giving you the view of the personal events that you have for the month of July. Okay? And apart from synchronizing this with your other calendars, we also have quite a few reports. And the two important reports that I'll focus within the next 5 minutes that we have is the employee timesheet that you can do for the entire quarter, as well as the client and service level summary. Okay, that pretty much outlines by date all the work that that your staff have done or your firm across multiple individuals have done. So here is the employee's name and the different dockets they have. Okay, by the council information. And the other report that we have under a calendar is the client summary report. It has the individual client names, the estimated hours, and the total billable hours. And this is very important for you to keep a tab on how you're performing as per your planned hours. Okay? It also gives you a quick summary based on the different individuals and assistants, and also the providers or the other lawyers or others part of the legal firm. Okay? And with 2 more minutes remaining, I want to get to that answer about how you add payroll expenses. Though it's kind of out of topic, it's basically under our accounts, expense, payroll, and benefits. Okay? These are all the categories we provide you under. All you have to do is say action, expense, and then tell us whether it's payables for salary, taxes, EHT, WCB, etc. I hope that answered that question. So just as a recap, we looked at dashboard and how it can navigate you to where you need to get to be faster in uLaw. Also gives you the ability to docket or reminds you of the tasks that you need to do to make your money. We looked at contacts and how you can store client information as well as other parties involved within a matter. We looked at how you would associate them as then additional parties within the context of the matter, which are then used for court form filling. We looked at calendar, a powerful way for you to capture all your dockets as well as your personal events, and how it ties with the dashboard to give you a unified view of all the tasks and events that you need to consider. And keeping in mind that this synchronizes with the uLaw app once you download it from either the iOS or the App Store, and provides you with contextual reporting, whether it's timesheet or service level summary of all the work that you've planned and executed for a particular date range for all your clients. Okay? And last but not the least, the QuickView that gives you a quick and easy way for you to access for any matter-related information. We give you the flexibility to categorize these different files and then search according to that. Okay, with that, I'll wrap up today's session, and I'll now open the floor for any questions that you may have. And I kindly do request that you participate, because it's a great learning experience when everyone participates and asks questions that can be answered over and above the monologue webinar that I present. Fantastic. So here's the first question: is how do you categorize these matters that you see in QuickView? Very good question. So you do have the active, closed, and archived, the different types of matters. So let me jump into my matter screen. So let's say this Robert Davidson. Let's just assume this is where you mark this as a closed or archived. So if I were to just close this, it's going to now group it as a closed matter. If I go to my quick view, I'm going to see that right under my closed sections. Okay. I believe the next question is, how do I delete an expense entered in an error? Now, the question is this an expense, office expense, or if this is a, if it's an office expense, you obviously go into the individual category. If it's a disbursement, that's a different thing. So, if it's an expense, if it's a client expense, so let's add a client expense, which is a disbursement. So you say it's an application fee. Let's say by mistake you put in that it's $50. Okay, but then you realize that it's actually $75. It's as simple as hitting edit, item, making that 75, unlocking that entry, and reposting it. So that 50 now becomes $75. Okay, but that's how simple it is to, edit a client expense. So let's say you have an office expense. You're going to say expense, office expense, and let's say under the office expense category, I'm going to say DOPA or legal society fees, CBA. I'm going to say, okay, so let's say this is actually $113, but you put in $100, and you say paid to CPA, credit card, or let's say we do it for general account, certified check. So let's see, you need to make that change. You go back into the general account. You're going to notice the July monthly fee. Click on the amount, and then make the amount, unlock. Let's say we make this 100, so overall it's 113. You can submit and resubmit it. Okay? Hope that answered that question. If you want to delete it, unlock, make this a 0. Oh, you just have to make that a 0. Once you make that as a 0, it goes away, just like you do your expense for your client. Edit, item, and takes it away. Okay? Any other questions that pertaining to maybe today's webinar or anything outside today's webinar as well? Happy to take that. Okay. If there aren't any more questions, again, thank you very much for joining us in today's webinar. And this session will be recorded and available to you early next week. And you can always access our YouTube channel, youtube.com/uLawPractice. And please do visit us on our uLawPractice webinar to look out for upcoming webinars, including our Law Society CPD accredited bookkeeping compliance webinar later this month. Okay? Thank you very much for your time today. have yourself a fantastic remainder of the day.